Welcome to the F50 Woman Podcast, dedicated to sharing stories from a diverse community of women in order to provoke you into a passionate pursuit of life, build unshakable character, and achieve extraordinary things. Now, here is your host, Julia Jack.
She was a young girl who believed she could do anything. She was a leader. She was a team starter. She was born an advocate and a multipotentialite, always seeking to affect change. Now, as the Director of Diversity and Workplace Culture, she's a diversity and inclusion change agent. What is a multipotentialite? Stay tuned and find out about that and more as I chat with Candy Phillips, one uniquely multifaceted F50 woman. Hey, everyone. You are listening to F50 Woman, and today I am here with Candy Phillips. And Candy Phillips is a diversity and inclusion change agent. So I'm so excited to have you here with us, Candy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me, Julia. I'm excited.
I'm excited that everyone's going to get to hear about who you were, who you are, what your journey has taught you, and maybe even a little bit more about what life can teach us. So let's just roll right into it. And let's hear about who Candy was as a young person, a little girl. You can go back as far as you want. Tell us about who you were, what you wanted to be, that kind of thing.
Well, Julia, I would say that I was fearless, very confident, and I believed that I could do anything and everything I wanted to.
Okay.
I was a dancer. I played badminton. I tried out for the cheerleading squad. Didn't make it in high school, but I tried out again in college. And when I was in high school, I said, you know what? I didn't make the cheerleading squad, but why don't I do something else? And I looked around. I saw some of the my classmates, and they wanted to start a drill team. And I said, well, let's do that. So I tried out for that. I was on the drill team. We did very well. In fact, we were more popular than the cheerleaders.
Oh.
And then when I went to college, I tried out for cheerleading and didn't make it. And I said, well, why don't I try something else? They didn't have a pom-pom squad. So I started a pom-pom squad, and we did very well. It was great. It was awesome. I also, when I was younger, I entered a dance contest. I'm dating myself. I wanted to get on Soul Train. Okay. I came in second place, didn't win, but hey, I tried anyway. I was always advocating for others. Mm-hmm. I did voter registration when I was young. In high school, I worked on campaigns, political campaigns. I started my own campaign to fight against apartheid. I was also a representative to the United States in the World Youth Festival in Moscow, Russia. Mm-hmm. I would work, I physically would stop strangers from fighting. I remember there was a young lady that I grew up with, and she had a boyfriend, and he was abusive. Mm-hmm. And I stepped in, and that was the kind of person I was. And I also held multiple jobs. Mm-hmm. My first one was throwing newspapers. I quit after a month. It was during the winter time, and I realized this is not what I want to do.
Yes.
I also worked at a hospital. I worked in the grocery store, did some accounting work, and I also repaired violins as a young child. Then later on, as I went through high school, I was an average to above average high school student. Okay. I loved most topics except math. I didn't love it, but I got through. I dealt with it. I later went to college, got a bachelor's degree in business administration and a master's degree in public administration. Worked in the retail field as an accountant for a while. Decided, nah, that's not the profession that I wanted to be in. Then I later found out about an opportunity to work in equal employment opportunity and civil rights. And this was great because I had already been working in human rights, just volunteering and doing things in the community. So this was a perfect opportunity for me. I held positions in transportation, healthcare, and higher education. And while I was working full time, I started my own business in equal employment opportunity and diversity consulting.
Wow.
And I did that for 14 years, but I was doing that and working full time at the same time. Then later, while working at the one of the community colleges in Connecticut, I was doing diversity as well as student counseling.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I saw a need, especially for students of color, in terms of their academics and not being ready for college. And so I decided at that time, well, why not be an elementary education teacher? Because I felt that at that point, at that stage, that I would be able to affect change in the African American community. So I left that position, went on to get a master's in education, elementary education, and I became certified as an elementary teacher and certified as a school administrator. I taught fifth grade and second grade. I taught multiple intelligence school. And then I went on to work in the private school as a principal and administrator until the organization decided they no longer wanted to operate as a school program. Mm-hmm. So I found myself transitioning again. Mm-hmm. At that point, I said, hey, what am I going to do? I started looking at my options. I looked around and then someone approached me and said, hey, have you thought about going into this business? It's called Supplemental Educational Services. And I said, that's interesting. I put a team together to do some research. And at the end of the day, I wound up opening up a small business. I had about 50 plus employees. They were mainly teachers, and they tutored in my program. We had a reading tutorial program for elementary students. Most of the business was in Connecticut, but I also worked in a couple of schools in Virginia. And so after that supplemental educational program, it ended. The federal government gave states option to end the program, and Connecticut was one of the states that decided to end that program. Mm-hmm. So again, I was in a position where I needed to make change. Mm-hmm. And not really knowing what I was going to do, I started talking to folks, asking around, say, hey, I need a job. And so I met this woman who worked for a company called KRA. It was workforce development in the state of Connecticut. And I talked to her about my experiences, and she hired me. It was an entry-level position, which was difficult because, as you know, I said, I had managed professionals. I had my own business. I worked in a professional capacity in several jobs prior to going to KRA, but it was a humbling experience. And I was interested because I had never worked fully in workforce development. And I said, hey, I need a job. Here's an opportunity. I started out, I believe, in the lowest position, is being an intake, not making much money at all. And when I say not making much, in comparison to what I had previously been making and in comparison to my education and experience, I was not making a lot of money. But you know what? I learned a lot. Okay. It was a great opportunity. I developed some new skills. I earned certifications while I was there, and I made some professional connections. So it was a very positive experience. And then after working there for 2 years, I made those connections, those professional connections that I needed to transition back into the workplace. And then I landed a position as a manager of diversity in the construction industry. Nice. So that's pretty much what I have done. And then you also asked me, what did I want to be?
Yeah, that'll be a great thing to hear. But before we get to that, give us an idea of what, when you were younger, made you to be so interested or involved in helping different people and so self-motivated that if you didn't make it onto something, you'd create your own? Where does that come from for you?
I think that I would say one, my mother being a single mom, raising children in the inner city, it was difficult for me as an African American female growing up. But also, so I had the desire. I had the, desire to help others. I also learned a lot about our history as African Americans. And so because of that, I developed a passion for helping others. And then one of the things too, is my mother would always say, I don't care what you decide to do in life. I don't care what it is, just be the best.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think I know that was a major factor in my life in terms of why I chose not to give up.
Okay.
Why I wanted to be the best, and why I chose to continue to move on. If one thing didn't work, I would move on to something else.
That's incredible. Whatever it was you chose. So now you could talk a little bit about did you always want to be in this field, or what did you want to be when you were younger?
Well, that's interesting. As a young child, I always wanted to be a pediatrician.
Okay.
And that was because I thought it would be great to work with children.
Okay.
I mean, it was just that simple. I didn't have a lot of information on various types of careers. There was no career coaching in my, when I was growing up. It was just be the best, just do whatever you want to do. And so that was one of the things I wanted to do. I did have an opportunity to actually work at a hospital. And then I figured out, no, this is not where I want to be.
Okay.
My high school counselor suggested that I pursue a career in engineering. But all I could think of is how I had to wear a hard hat and construction boots. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that.
Oh, okay.
So needless to say, I chose not to pursue engineering.
Okay.
During my senior year in high school, I was very indecisive, not really sure of what I want to do and how I want to do it. In fact, I had decided, well, why go to college? I don't really want to go to college until I really figured this thing out. And then a friend who had already been in college for 2 years, she said, well, why don't you just come to my college? And I was like, oh, okay. And she told me about it. And I said, well, isn't it a little late? She said, oh, no, they'll accept anybody. I was like, oh, okay.
Right.
They'll accept you late. They will accept you late. I was like, okay, no problem. So I filled out the application, and there I was in college. And I chose to major in business.
Right.
Because I didn't think I had to do much math in business. So I figured I'd choose business at the time. So
Right. Yeah. So tell us about where you are now and what you do, and tell us about your passion.
So I feel I'm very confident, well-rounded subject matter expert, and have developed some invaluable skills from my many diverse work experiences.
Yes.
I'm really excited, I'm really excited about that and all those opportunities. I'm now the director of diversity and workplace culture for an international organization in Virginia, based in Virginia. And also, because community service, I think, is very important, it's critical to be involved. I'm also the director of diversity for the Hampton Roads Society for Human Resource Management.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah, tell us about that. What is that? The Hampton Roads?
Well, Hampton Roads, Hampton, Virginia, in the area of Virginia Beach, Chesapeake area. They have a Society for Human Resource Management, which is typically HR folks, along with diversity professionals and others in the HR arena. They usually, this is a large organization that many of the the HR professionals are members of. And
Okay.
they have local chapters.
Gotcha.
So that's a local chapter. And I said, I just moved to Virginia the end of 2019.
Okay.
And I started my new job in 2020, January of 2020.
Wow.
And when of course, COVID hit and all
Yes.
that, but there was an opportunity that came up for the director of diversity. And I said, what a great way to learn the area, to connect with other professionals. And so I applied and I was voted on and accepted as the director of diversity.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. So tell us now, what is the pivot point? What's your big lesson?
Well, I would say that everything changed for me when I realized that I was not weird for changing careers all the time.
Not weird. Okay.
I'm not an anomaly. And that my education and skills and work experiences were of significant value to my self-development and to the organizations that I worked for.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I
Also,
agree. Yeah.
yeah. And
Mhm.
also in my recent research, I discovered that I'm what is called multipotential. I'm a multipotentialite. And what that is an educational and psychological term referring to the ability and preference of a person, particularly one of strong intellectual or artistic curiosity, to excel in two or more different fields.
Wow. Wait a minute. Multi-potential.
Potential light. Yeah.
But I remember being in college and I went to an event of some kind. I was working to be an architect, and they said there's one thing you must not do as a young professional, and that's change companies. Stay with a company for 5 years.
Forever.
And I just don't know if that was the best advice. Of course, I didn't take it because of other things that went on, but I agree with you. The diversity of experience is something that can potentially really make you a valuable team member or leader.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you feel like it informed your leadership and diversity and inclusion? And if so, how? I'm throwing that question in.
Yeah, I mean, it really does. Like you were saying, it makes you a valuable team player and a member of the team. A lot of corporations now are looking for the multi-potentialites to put them and pair them with others that just, have one career, because they feel that they can get the most out of those conversations and they can be more productive. In the job that I'm in now, just for example, a position came up in another department, a director position, and it just happened to be equal employment opportunity, a civil rights position. And they weren't sure what they were going to do. They didn't know if the person that was there serving was going to stay in that position. And so, number one, I work in the HR department. And so the vice president of human resources has been leaning on me for advice in the EEO area because he knows that I have that expertise.
Right.
So when this position became open, he encouraged me to apply for the position and possibly taking over both departments.
Wow.
Yes.
Would you do it? Would you do that?
I would. Oh,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So, I mean, think about the opportunities. Had I not had the opportunity of the EEO, had I not had all the other opportunities that have had a major impact on my skill and development throughout my career, I would not have been even qualified at all for that position. But it did make me qualify. Ultimately, the person that was in it decided to stay. But the opportunity is still there. So they were like, just hold on. Because when she retired, we're going to come looking for you.
There, and you're ready.
Yes.
So did you have a mentor? Did somebody help you along the way? I know sometimes people purposely look for them. Some just slip into your life. Tell us about how that worked out for you.
Yes, absolutely. I had multiple mentors, including my mother, my sister, my husband, and other family members, my church family, my sorority sisters, my friends. I had an English, when I was in high school, my English teacher, one of my English teachers and one of my history teachers were mentoring me. I've had subject matter experts that I have connected with that have been very instrumental in my career, my development. I've worked for a couple of really great, not just a couple, but several bosses that have been very, very supportive and have guided me as I have worked. Also, co-workers and even strangers that I've met in my travels.
Okay.
That, have given me advice and just, opening up and having conversation and sharing some, information that has been very instrumental in my career.
Right. I like to emphasize that part just because as women, it doesn't always have to be some long, purposeful program. When you're interfacing with a younger woman or even a woman, your peer, giving that advice in the moment or talking to them, finding out what they might be working with or fighting through is a great way to mentor somebody, so that's
Absolutely.
great. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you're walking down the street in Virginia and you see a young woman and it happens to be you when you're younger. What would be the advice you would give your younger self?
I would say to myself, hey, Candy, you need to explore your options.
Okay.
And never be afraid to start over again.
Okay. Nice.
And I would also say it's okay to try it out. And if you don't like it, or if it doesn't like you, try something else. Okay. Even if you quit a job or a career, you can always apply the knowledge that you gain in another career or opportunity.
Nice. Wish we could rewind and play it again. So for our listeners, rewind and play that again, because it's really valuable for just about anyone, because we always feel like I have to make this choice and I have to stick with it, or the world's going to fall off. And if like you were saying earlier, how you had to step back a little bit, and it hurts, but look how much you learn when you do. And
absolutely,
that's incredible advice. So I have a random question for you that I ask everybody. Why do you think evil spreads faster than love? Or do you even think that's true?
I don't think that's true.
Okay.
I believe that love conquers all.
Okay.
I am, I grew up as a Christian, and I truly believe that love conquers all. Okay. So that means that love conquers evil as well. And so I choose to believe that love spreads faster than evil. And that is what's gonna because I believe that we as a people, as humans, I think that, we are more receptive to love than evil. And because of that, and because of my values that I hold so dear to me, I truly believe that love conquers all. And I don't give evil the time of day.
Yeah, nice. Which is hard to do, when the world keeps telling you how terrible things are.
Yes, it is. It really is hard.
Yeah.
But you have to find that inner strength and that peace of mind. Yeah. And I'm always believing and hoping. Yeah. And that's where I get my strength from.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. And so this might even have, again, this is another question I'm going to throw at you just spontaneously. As a diversity and inclusion leader, how does that all play out in the professional setting, or maybe even a social setting where, that whole diversity and inclusion thing tends to light fires? And how does that play out in that environment? Or how do you temper it? Or does it even? I don't know. Maybe it's a lot softer than I imagine. I don't know what's like being in your position, having to have maybe even some hard conversations with people who just don't agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, let's just put it like this, because I've had experience in equal employment opportunity
Yeah.
and civil rights.
Mhm.
Um, it's more palatable than equal employment opportunity. I can tell you that much. It is really an extension. I call it the proactive arm of equal employment opportunity. That's what diversity and inclusion is all about. It's being more proactive rather than just, meeting the regulations and the standard. Let's move beyond that. And so that's what diversity and inclusion does. And there's always controversy about it because you always have those within the organizations, especially that believe that, someone is getting a leg up on someone else.
Right.
And that's just it's human nature not to want to feel like I'm also being treated fairly. Everybody wants to be treated fairly, right? So we have to deal with that. Now, because of, if you notice that a lot of corporations are talking about diversity, and basically what they have done is there are a lot of stats out there now that demonstrates that diversity within teams, diversity within your organization, diversity at the higher ranks within the organization means that your bottom line is going to grow, meaning that, organizations have all looked at the data and they have been checking that data and they've been analyzing it. And what they see is a growth in revenues. And when organizations see growth in revenue, then they can see and tie it to diversity and inclusion. They see the benefits of it. And so for us, for the organization that I'm in, for example, showing that the bottom line makes a difference when you have diversity and inclusion helps the conversation. It helps. But you still have to deal with the naysayers, and you still have to deal with those that are, I don't care about the bottom line. All I care about is who's getting what within the organization. So yeah, I mean, things are, I think, is coming around. If you look at the census data and look at the statistics now of workers within the workforce, you see the various generations within the workforce. The age range has increased. So you see an older work group. You also see the diversity in the population. And so organizations that are smart and they do their research, they know the benefits of having a diverse and inclusive workforce.
Nice.
If you are enjoying the F50 Woman podcast, don't forget to share your positive comments and ratings and share us on all your favorite social media channels. F50 Woman is a movement created for women, spread by women. Thank you for your support. Now back to the show and your host, Julia Jack.
Have you seen in the last year with COVID and all the challenges it brought us and Black Lives Matter and all these other things that have been going on, do you feel in your company that people have been more vocal, more open with their opinions and thoughts and challenges with this whole diversity and inclusion discussion?
Yes, I have. Now, I just started with this organization in 2020.
Right.
So I'm only speaking from what I've been told from our associates. And they have said that because of COVID and because of all of the unrest that has been going on in our nation and in the world, they have seen more open discussions. We've had open discussions. Different folks within our association have had opportunities to speak, to share their voices. We have the employee resource groups that we're trying to get going where I am, and they're using their voices to have impact on the organizational goals as a whole. So I really see a change with that. And I think that at least when we look at our leadership, that they're more open to hearing it and to listening to what others have to say and being more empathetic. to others that have been disenfranchised. So yes, I see it as going in the right direction. We just have to keep working at it and making sure that we continue in that direction. So,
challenge question. What do you or what would you say to an individual who says they don't agree with it, they don't like it? Like you were mentioning, some people feel like it's not fair.
Mhm.
Everybody else is getting a stepping stool and I have to stand on the ground to do what I'm doing. What would you say, or what kind of discussion would help them? I don't know if you've had it, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the situation. Now, because we have civil rights laws and equal employment opportunity, that's a given that you have to follow within the organization. And so there is no latitude or no, question as to whether or not you have to follow those laws. So that's one thing. But for those that are not interested and they don't want to participate, what we do is we try to engage them. Number one, we have a diversity council, for example, and a lot of organizations have diversity councils. And that council is one of the ways that we can affect change by getting those naysayers, getting them involved and bringing them at the table of diversity and inclusion. It helps. And then there's some situations where it's not going to help. But we try to engage our associates or the employees within our organization. I think that's really critical. Like one of the things that we do is we ask the senior district folks to actually help and assist us with coordinating and implementing diversity events that we have. So by getting them engaged, and then also one of the things that we do is to affect change is we make it a priority so that if it's part of their performance review.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah. So
that's not fair.
it's not. No, of course it's
I
not
can't
fair.
get a raise because I have to be part of this thing.
Well,
I'm not thinking about the opposite. You know what?
They have to participate.
Okay,
They have to participate in some type of community outreach, diversity kind of events, those kinds of things, as to show, especially the leaders. These are the leaders within the organization to show that they support diversity and inclusion because it does start at the leadership level. So yes, it is part of their performance.
Okay, I like it. It sounds to me challenging, but I guess if you, like you said, you're just trying to be proactive and you're not being prescriptive, meaning you have to do what I say. Right. But let's learn, let's figure out how to make this change, the changes that need to take place.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's not as aggressive and forceful or
no.
Not making you think like I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What is one book you would advise all women to read?
I would suggest that every woman read Michelle Obama's book, Becoming.
Okay.
Now, the reason why I selected that particular book is because we've been talking a lot about careers and changing careers and being willing to be adaptable and adjust to various situations as they come along. Because, as women, we have a lot going on. I mean, one of the things I didn't mention earlier, but I was not in the workforce for 2 years because I was with my child. And so going back and transitioning into the workplace can be very difficult, and looking at careers in a variety of different ways. And in that book, Michelle Obama talks about how she practiced law. Now, this is a woman that went to Princeton and then over to Harvard and had a law degree. And she was practicing law at a prestigious law firm. Had a wonderful office, the pay was good, she was doing very well, but she found out when she was there that wasn't what she didn't want to practice law.
Right.
She felt that her passion was more with public service.
Okay.
And so she left all of that for a lot less pay. She didn't have her own office with a beautiful desk and all of the perks that she had gotten from working in the law firm. And she left all of that to go and work for a city in the public service arena because of her passion. And so, I think that was critical. It resonated with me. I could identify with it because I know that I've done that as well. And of course, we know where her journey has taken her.
Yes, we know that part. Awesome. I actually started reading that book. I haven't gotten past the beginning of when she was a child and the piano lessons and things. But I know that the book is full of her ups and downs and challenges and really telling you where she comes from and how it all developed.
Yes.
Just so we get to know you a little bit better, tell us the one thing that you can't not do every day.
At first, when I thought about it, a good friend of mine, Winnie Battle, she is an avid, she exercises all the time, and she always has, and she encourages us to do that.
Yeah.
And so when I first thought about it, I thought about her and I said, I've been walking for over a year now. I try to get out there every day, but that's not it for me. Okay. It really is praying. Right. I miss it sometimes. I'm not always there, on the mark with that, but prayer change. I believe that prayer changes things. It has helped me to get through all the ups and downs in my life. Again, as a Christian, I think that it is critical, and it is something that I can't do without, because when I'm down, I pray. When I'm up, I'm praying, and I know that the Spirit of God is with me and getting me through everything, in the good times and in the bad times. So that's the one thing that I can't miss, and I shouldn't miss. Let's put it like this. I shouldn't miss.
Right. Yeah.
On a daily basis.
Yeah. So would you be willing to share with us, was that always something you did? Did that come about later in life, or where did that come from? Did you always have a connection to God when you were younger, or was there a moment that sort of brought him to life, or where you searched for him?
I would say I've been a Christian all my life. I grew up in a home of Christians and family. Now, my connection to him really did not really begin until I was older, in terms of my relationship and building my relationship, until after I had gone through a period when I was in college where I didn't even want to go to church. But then I found that I needed something in my life was missing. And so after I graduated from college, I started going back to church, because when I was younger, I was in church all the time. It was 24/7. And so I had enough. But when I started going back, started under a ministry that was what we call the Word Ministry, where they taught a lot about the Bible. And I learned so much because I had a different perspective at that time. When I was younger, it was more, I'm doing this because it's the thing to do. This is a natural thing. I have a relationship, with my mother and other family and friends and that kind of thing. But when I became older and an adult and was able to really connect with God myself, then that's when I really started developing and understanding more about God's word and prayer and how it would affect in my life and make a difference.
So I hear, even in your journey as a professional, finding your career, and even in this with your relationship with God, I hear a lesson for mothers that you just show them the way, and when they get older, their feet land and it has meaning for them. At first, we don't really know, but if you don't point us there, then we'll just never know. Maybe we'll fall into it, maybe not. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, and eventually we come back, so like you said, it's a lesson. And I think that's with anything. If we teach our children, they may not demonstrate their knowledge that we would like for them to. They may stray and they may do other things, but eventually I really believe that they do come back to those lessons.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I feel like I have 10,000 questions because this whole diversity and inclusion, sort of been my life, but it hasn't been intellectualized for me. And I'm really trying to understand others' perspectives. So just the difference between equal opportunity and diversity and inclusion and how one is a proactive, light bulbs. So
Great.
yeah.
And this is probably a topic for another discussion, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because it's big and it's multidimensional and it's layered. And even talking about how do we get people from a younger age to be included?
Mm-hmm.
There's some steps or things they don't get to touch. Like you were saying, there are some careers you didn't even know existed. Nobody told me to be a whatever.
Right.
So you'll never be one because nobody in my neighborhood or, my mom's not one. So yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, as I say, unfortunately, and we're talking many years ago, right? Unfortunately, we're seeing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, it's not changing. Yeah,
it's not changing, and that's disheartening. So that's why I want to do whatever I can to make change and do my part.
Yeah.
But it is really difficult. It's difficult.
Yeah. When those difficult times come, know that we are appreciating your work and your perseverance and every nudge. Everybody's got a nudge from their corner, and hopefully the world will shift at some point, somehow.
Yeah, somehow.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you for having me on today. This is really great, and I appreciate what you do as well.
Thank you for being here.
Keep up the good work.
And one more thing before you leave, how can individuals who are listening get in touch with you after this is over? What's the best way for them to connect with you?
So the best way to connect with me is through my work. My email address is Candy, Candy .Phillips, Phillips, at NextWeb. That's N like in Nancy, EXWEB.org.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing your time and your story. And we look forward to watching to see what's next for you.
Awesome. Thank you.
You've been listening to the F50 Woman Podcast. Join the F50 Woman movement and this diverse group of voices to help change the world one woman at a time. Why should you join at your age? Because we're not done yet.